All right. Okay. Okay, everyone, please confirm me. Am I audible to everyone? Everyone, please confirm me. Am I audible to everyone? Just confirm me. Okay. Okay, just give me a moment of time. By that, we'll start it. 1 second, 1 second. Just give me one moment of time. Let others also quickly join. All right, just a minute. All right. Okay. Now, friend, good evening, everyone. So today's morning class, if every one of you recall, we have started discussing about the what we can say plant physiology, is it? So friends, now we are majorly focusing on human physiology. That is, we are focusing on the endocrine system especially. So every one of you just try to understand my words very clearly. Understand what are the various subunits that we have to focus on in the animal physiology chapter. Everyone remember, in the animal physiology or in the human physiology chapter, remember everyone very clearly, we have to study multiple systems. What are the various systems that we have to study in the human physiology is, we have to study the endocrine system, as well as we have to study the respiratory system. The most important one, friends, we have to focus on the blood circulation. This is one of the most important system that every student has to focus on this compulsory. Endocrine system, respiratory system, blood circulatory system, then followed by the excretory system. Excretory system. Then the fifth one, we should also focus on the nervous system, right? And we should also focus on no the another important system, I can say that thermoregulation. What is that? Thermoregulation. I can say to all of you friends, these 6 units are extremely important units. Okay, and when it comes to the concept of the digestive system, friends, if you want to read it, you can read it, or if you want to leave it, you can leave it the digestive system. It won't cause much problem. But it is very important, you have to cover the remaining every single subunit compulsory. Some people are purely from the botany background, purely from the biotechnology background, purely from microbiology background. They may feel human physiology is one of the difficult unit, but I am requesting everyone, even though it is a very difficult unit, friends, difficult chapter for all of you, but it is scoring unit. Why? Because questions are not so complicated. Most of the questions are experimental based questions only, but a kind of a direct only. You can answer those, with a thorough understanding of the concept. That's why I'm requesting every one of you, compulsory focus on the human physiology without fail. All right. Now let's focus. What is endocrine system? So friends, I'll explain you for 20 minutes. After that, you can raise all your doubts. Okay, listen to me carefully first. If you look into the endocrine system, what we can say that endocrine system basically consists of what kind of glands? We all people commonly know that endocrine system consists of all the type of the endocrine glands and the hormones released from it. Now you know very well, endocrine system basically contains 2 type of glands. Every student focus. One is called as the endocrine gland and another one is called, friends, exocrine gland. Now here comes a very important question. How can we differentiate? How can we differentiate what is endocrine gland and what is the exocrine gland? That's Important difference. Remember everyone, endocrine glands are those type of gland friends. They can pour their secretions directly into the bloodstream. What do you understand by that, friends? Which means that endocrine glands do not have any bag-like structure. That's the point you have to remember. Endocrine glands do not have any pouch-like structure to store all their secretion. It can't store anywhere. Since it can't store anywhere, undoubtedly it is going to release all their secretions exclusively into the blood. That's the reason we call it as the endocrine gland. But if you look into the exocrine gland, what you have to remember, all the exocrine glands having a bag-like structure, all the exocrine gland having a pouch-like structure, they friends, they can compulsory release all their secretion. What is the meaning of secretion here? Secretion means they are secreting hormones only, right? Which means they are releasing the hormones. Where they will release the hormone? They will release the hormones directly into the body surfaces or lumen of the organ. In very simple words, I can tell to all of you, endocrine glands can't store the hormones, can't keep it with them only. Whenever there is a requirement, it can't release because they don't have any bag or pouch like structure, so they directly release into the bloodstream. Whereas exocrine glands, they directly pour them into the lumen of the organs. No point of getting confused over there, and it is easy to understand. Now, where this particular endocrine glands are associated in the body, it is not necessary that endocrine system has to restricted to only one particular part of the body. No, it's not like that. So starting from the, remember everyone, if you focus on the picture correctly, starting from the hypothalamus, friends, listen everyone, starting from the hypothalamus till the genital organ, everywhere this endocrine glands are generally present. So in simple words, we can say that, friends, endocrine glands are situated throughout the body. No point of getting confused over there. Now, whether it is an endocrine gland or whether it is an exocrine gland, what is the most important point that every student has to remember? What they are going to release. Endocrine glands or exocrine glands are basically releasing the hormones. Now tell me, how can we define the word hormones? How can we give a simple definition for the hormones? We generally say, friends, whether it is a plant hormone, whether it is an animal hormone, we give the general definition. What is that? They are chemical messengers. What, friends? They are chemical messenger. Tell me why we are using the word chemical messengers actually. Because they are carrying the information. They are carrying the signals from one part of the body to the other part of the body. That is the reason only we are calling it as the messengers, which are carrying the information from one area to the another area. Never get confused with the point. And here comes a very important and unique statement to be remembered is very important, friends. If any hormone want to show their action in the body, always remember, friends, every hormone, whether it is a plant hormone, whether it is an animal hormone, the hormone has to be released only at the low concentration only. Never ever get confused with this point. What I mean to say, friends, more the concentration, less the activity. Which means if the hormone want to show a better action in the organism body, it always require the low concentration. They have to be released in the low concentration. When the concentration is very low, activity is extremely higher. Don't get confused with the point. And another important point every student has to remember, the site of production and the site of action is entirely different. Let me explain you. Site of production is different, site of action is different. Suppose example, you take a plant. Some hormones like auxin, it is synthesized in the shoot. But finally where the auxin show their action, auxin is going to show their action in the root. That's why we can say that site of production, site of action entirely different. Same in the animal body also. Suppose a hormone is released in the hypothalamus, but that hormone is showing its activity on the kidney. Suppose that hormone is showing its activity on the liver. So that's why site of production, site of action is entirely different. Now the next most important and unique point that every student has to remember, all the hormones, how they are going to transport. That is an important statement to be remembered, friends. All the hormones are exclusively transported via blood as their stream of transport. How they are getting transported? Via blood as their stream of transport. That is a very clear point, no confusion at all. Now here comes the most important point. Any hormone, whether it is a plant hormone also, animal hormone also, if any hormone want to show their activity, it compulsory require the receptor. Every student keep the point in your mind, whether it is a hormone, whether it is a growth factor, whether it is a neurotransmitter, whatever it may be, if they want to show their mechanism of action in the plant body, sorry, in the organism body, they compulsory require the receptors. Without receptor, no hormone can show their action. Always remember that statement correctly. All the students understand my point. This is called as hormone releasing cell. We can call it as the hormone secreting cell. Now the hormone releasing cell or hormone secreting cell, they released the hormone. You can see the picture very clearly. That hormone is a travel through the blood as their stream of transport. You can see that. That hormone is traveling via blood as their stream of transport. It will travel via blood as the stream of transport and reaches to the targeted cell. Now friends, the question is super clear. Whenever it reaches to the targeted cell, if it want to show their action, remember everyone, it has to attach to the receptor compulsory. If it is not attaching to the receptor, friends, it cannot show any kind of activity. There is no point of getting confused over there. So any hormone want to show their action, it has to associate it with the receptor. So simple step it is. So let's quickly understand what we can say. The properties of the hormones. Hormones are said to be the chemical messengers because they are carrying the information from one area to the another area. And what I told you, any hormone wants to show their action in the body. Listen, it's a very interesting topic. Every single hormone has to be released in the low concentration only. Low the concentration, higher the activity. And every single hormone, their site of production is different and the site of action is also entirely different. Never get confused with the point. And every hormone, how it is going to travel in the body, every hormone is going to travel via blood as their stream of transport, and it reaches to the targeted area and it will associate it with the targeted cell. No point of confusing over there. Now friends, listen, all the students listen. All the hormones are broadly categorized into two types. All the hormones are broadly categorized into two types based on what? That is very important, friends. Based on their solubility. So there are two type of hormones are there based on their solubility. We called lipid soluble hormones. We call it as water soluble hormones. Every student please answer a very simple question. Among these two type of hormones, which type of hormones can cross the plasma membrane very easily? Can any one of you quickly tell me, among these two types, which hormones are going to release? Which hormones are going to cross the plasma membrane? Among the lipid soluble hormone and among the water soluble hormone? Every one of you. Quickly, so simple question. Don't need to take this much of time. Which hormones can cross the plasma membrane very easily? There is no point of thinking, friends. Undoubtedly, lipid soluble hormones are the one which can cross the plasma membrane very easily. Because plasma membrane is also made up of the lipids only. That we all people very commonly know that. Then what about the water soluble hormones? They cannot cross the membrane. Now, just now, I have told to all the students one very common point. What is the one very common point that I have explained to all of you? Any hormone want to show their action, they compulsory has to interact with the receptor. So every student remember, lipid soluble hormones, they can easily cross the plasma membrane. So friends, Obviously they are going to associate with what kind of receptor? Obviously they are going to associate with the intracellular receptor, means the receptors which are present within the cell, either in the cytoplasm or in the nucleus. Now tell me, what are called as water soluble hormones? As you all said that they cannot diffuse the plasma membrane. Now what's the question? Since they cannot cross the membrane, but if they want to show their action, they have to attach it to the receptor compulsory. Now question is here, they are associated with what kind of a receptor? That is important point. They are always associated with the cell surface receptor. No point of getting confused over there, and it is extremely easy to understand. Cell surface receptor. Every student look into this. From this particular slide, I want every one of you pay super attention and keep answering my questions. I will be asking a very basic level question since these are all the starting classes. Look into this beautiful picture. Look into this. This is the hormone, which released into the bloodstream. From the bloodstream, it is entering into the targeted cell. Since it is entering into the targeted cell, it can easily cross the plasma membrane. What is the reason it can easily cross the plasma membrane? Because the hormone is the lipid soluble hormone. That is the reason it can cross the plasma membrane, and it entered into either cytoplasm or it entered into the nucleus. What is the reason why it is entering into the cytoplasm and why it is entering into the nucleus? Depending on wherever its receptor is present. Suppose example friends, the receptor is present in the nucleus. Undoubtedly it will go and associated with that particular receptor. Immediately it will show their function. What is the ultimate function of the hormone? Hormone is actually involved in the gene expression. So it stimulates DNA synthesis, RNA transcription, finally protein synthesis. As a result, the protein is going to perform that specific function. This is not required. We will discuss in the cell signaling. Remember a point very clearly that all the lipid soluble hormones are using only intracellular receptor. What you have to remember for the exam? You have to remember examples. The best example, estrogen, progesterone, all these sex hormones, androgen, testosterone, corticosteroid. Why we are all saying these as the steroid hormones? How they can cross the plasma membrane very easily. Every student remember, they can easily cross the plasma membrane friends because they are having cholesterol as their backbone. What they are having friends? They are having cholesterol as their major backbone. Since they are having the cholesterol as their major backbone only, they can easily cross the membrane. No point of getting confused over there. Next, the most important, I believe you all people remember, you read in the BSc and MSc level also, water soluble hormone. As the name itself indicating friends, they cannot cross the plasma membrane. That is not even possible because they are completely water soluble. Now what is the point here? They have to use the receptors compulsory which are present on the cell membrane itself, because they can't cross the membrane only. So every student, for the exam point of view, remember, most of the water soluble hormones, they generally uses what kind of a receptor? They generally uses GPCR receptor. You all people read multiple times. This is also a question which we got in the exam multiple times. Z protein coupled receptors, which are used by the water soluble hormones, which are present on the membrane. Then with the help of this receptor, they are going to show their action. How they will show their action, we will read in the upcoming slide. Now listen, all these water soluble hormones broadly divided into three types: amine hormones, peptide hormones. This is called as eicosanoid hormones. Listen, they are very interesting. Now tell me, why we call it as the amine hormones? What is the reason? The reason is simple. All these hormones are derived basically from the amino acid derivatives. They basically derived from the amino acids. That's the reason only we are calling it as the amino hormones. Best example, epinephrine, norepinephrine, we will discuss in the upcoming slide. Dopamine. Epinephrine, norepinephrine is also derived from the tyrosine. Dopamine derived from tyrosine. Histamine, the most important neurotransmitter or the chemical mediator which is involved in the allergic reaction. We get a continuous allergic reaction because of the excessive release of the histamine only. And this histamine is derived from histidine amino acid. Here you can expect the matching questions. So it is so important you people to remember. Serotonin, that is also a tryptophan derivative. In the upcoming slide, we will discuss one by one hormone very elaboratively. Now, the most common type of hormone, peptide hormone. Tell me, friends, why we use the word peptide hormone? A very simple word. The simple reason because they are all proteinaceous in nature. They are all proteinaceous in nature. That is the reason only, friends, we are calling it as the peptide hormones. No point of getting confused. Insulin, oxytocin, ADH hormone, growth hormone. I believe you all remember. Insulin is the one which are involved in the blood glucose metabolism. And you know, oxytocin is the major hormone which is involved in the uterine contraction. We are going to discuss about that. ADH, we also call it as vasopressin, which is also called as vasopressin. We will discuss the function. Now, amine hormones derived from amino acid, peptide hormones are proteinaceous in nature. Friends, are very different type, which is called eicosanoid hormones. What is the speciality of this particular eicosanoid hormones? Remember, best example, all the eicosanoid hormones derived from the arachidonic acid. Now, the best examples are, every student listen, prostaglandins and leukotrienes. We will discuss in the upcoming slide, but you remember, prostaglandins are the major chemicals that are causing the inflammation. You know, no friends, suppose when we get a small injury, even though small cut occur, that particular area undergo the inflammation. The major chemical that is mediating the process of the inflammation is the prostaglandin. And you know, right, whenever a particular area that got swollen, obviously it creates a lot of pain at that particular area. It will become pain and you can observe completely redness. So that redness and pain given by a chemical called as the leukotriene. So the leukotriene and prostaglandin actually derived from what, friends? They are derived from the eicosanoids. No point of getting confused over there and easy to understand. Okay. Every one of you, please confirm, is it clear till this particular slide? Anyone having any kind of a doubt? Clear, everyone? Please quickly confirm. Harshita, is it clear for you? Everyone. And you know, I want you to be very much interactive. Then only you can learn the concepts. Okay. Always remember my words. Don't think that if you just read 90 days very dedicatedly, you can crack the competitive exams. That never possible in all the time. Okay. You require a wonderful understanding of the concepts. Whenever you have a wonderful understanding of the concept, then only you can get a good idea how to solve the questions. So always give the importance in gaining the right knowledge on the subject. Alright. For that, the only way is, friends, we have to interact. Amini, the name itself indicating, right, intracellular receptor. The receptors which are present inside the cell, that is called as intracellular receptor. So the receptor, it may be present within the cytoplasm or the receptor present within the nucleus also. But if the receptor is present inside the cell, we can call it intracellular. But if the receptor is present on the surface of the membrane, we call it as cell surface receptor. There is no point of getting confused over there. Easy to understand. Alright. Now, friends, focus. From here, every concept is very interesting concept, and most of the common questions that appears from here. Hypothalamus. The moment you heard the name of a hypothalamus, what is the common point that everyone has to remember? Hypothalamus is the one which is linking. What it is linking? It is linking the nervous system with the endocrine system. Okay. In one single word, I can tell to all the students one common point. Hypothalamus is actually acting as a regulatory center. What friends? It is acting like what? It is acting like a regulatory center which is going to regulate the action of every single hormone. Some students will think that hypothalamus never synthesize the hormones. That is a wrong statement. Hypothalamus also involved. Hypothalamus also can synthesize the hormones, but we will discuss how it is going to synthesize that hormones. Now all the students please focus on the picture very correctly. Friends, this is the hypothalamus, you can see that, and just below the hypothalamus we have a pituitary gland. Every student has to look into this. This is called as the pituitary gland, very important for the exam. 90% of the questions will come from here only. Now if you observe the structure of the pituitary gland, it contains two parts, which is called posterior pituitary and which is called anterior pituitary. Remember, 75 to 85% of the pituitary gland composed of the posterior pituitary only. 15 to 25% of the pituitary gland composed by the anterior pituitary. No point of getting confused over there. And what is the most important statement here? If you look into the anterior pituitary gland, friends, understand my words, understand my words. If you look into the anterior pituitary gland, it can synthesize the hormones, it can release the hormone. Moreover, it is going to regulate the hormone also. Now the question for the exam, if you look into the posterior pituitary, they never synthesize the hormone. That's a unique statement to be remembered. If it is not synthesizing the hormone, then what it will do? That's a good question. It is going to store and release two hormones whenever there is a requirement. What are the two hormones that are stored by the posterior pituitary and getting released during the time of requirement? Oxytocin and vasopressin. Now the question is here, if the posterior pituitary is not synthesizing the two hormones, now question is that who is synthesizing these two hormones? Sharmila, who is going to synthesize the oxytocin and vasopressin? Every student remember, hypothalamus actually synthesizing the oxytocin and vasopressin. From the hypothalamus, they enter into the posterior pituitary. In the posterior pituitary, they are getting stored. Whenever there is a requirement, then only they are going to release. No point of getting confused over there, and it is very, very easy to understand. Now we will discuss first posterior pituitary, we will discuss completely. Then we will come back to the bigger one, anterior pituitary. Okay. Now before understanding that, every single student has to look into this beautiful picture. Try to understand what exactly I am trying to say. You can see here also. Every student look into this. This is the anterior pituitary. This is the posterior pituitary. This is anterior pituitary and this is the posterior pituitary. No point of getting confused over there. So listen to me very carefully. If you look into the anterior pituitary, posterior pituitary, they both are connected to what? Friends, this entire area we call hypothalamus. This entire area called hypothalamus. Now, how the hypothalamus connecting the anterior and posterior pituitary? Every student remember, I told you, right? Hypothalamus basically contains what? Neurons. Now if I ask you a question, does the neurons will secrete the hormones? Never ever. Neurons never ever involved in secreting the hormones. But what is the point you have to remember? Within the hypothalamus, remember, within the hypothalamus, there are certain specialized neurons are present. Let me repeat my statement. Within the neurons, within the hypothalamus, certain specialized neurons are there. Now if I ask you a question, why we are using the word specialized neuron? How they are different from other neurons? We are calling them as the specialized neurons because they are involved in releasing the hormones. Whereas other neurons never synthesize the hormones. Only specialized neurons can secrete the hormone. That specialized neurons only we call it as neurosecretory cells. What do we can call it? Neurosecretory cell. So the hypothalamus contain neurosecretory cells. They release the hormones. They synthesize the hormones. Look at that. those hormones reaching the anterior pituitary also, those hormones reaching the posterior pituitary also. Now question is here, how? That is important for the exam. All the hormones from the hypothalamus, they are reaching anterior and posterior via, you can see, right, the green color one, the purple color one, what we call it as the hypophyseal portal system. You get the question from here also. What do we call it as? A hypophyseal portal system. Hypophyseal portal system, nothing but it is a group of arteries, group of veins which are carrying the messages, or which are carrying the hormones from the hypothalamus into the anterior pituitary and into the posterior pituitary. Don't get confused, easy to understand. Now what we discuss first? First we will discuss the posterior pituitary, then we will come to the anterior pituitary, because posterior pituitary contain only two hormones, whereas anterior pituitary is very big. So let's focus on this. I want every student has to understand and answer the questions. Posterior pituitary. Posterior pituitary is also called as neurohypophysis. You have to remember, friends, we will discuss in the upcoming slide. If you look into the anterior pituitary, friends, anterior pituitary also called as adenohypophysis. Anterior pituitary called as adenohypophysis, posterior pituitary called as the neurohypophysis. Don't get confused with the statement. Now all the students listen. Very important statement for the exam. Like anterior pituitary, posterior pituitary cannot synthesize any hormone at all. Then if it is not synthesizing the hormone, what exactly it is trying to do? It is storing. It is storing and releasing the two hormones. That's a unique point to be remembered. It stores and releases the two hormones produced by the hypothalamus. No point of getting confused. Best example, oxytocin, antidiuretic hormone, also called as vasopressin. Let's discuss one by one hormone elaboratively. The moment you heard the name of a oxytocin, two statements are very important to remember. What is that? The interesting point here, friends, oxytocin will be helpful before birth also. Oxytocin can be helpful even after birth also. How is that possible? How it can be helpful before and after birth also? Remember everyone, oxytocin plays a key role during and after childbirth. During the childbirth, what it will do, I mean to say, during the childbirth, it stimulates the uterus muscle contraction. Suppose example, during the labor time, during the time of delivery, suppose these are the vaginal muscles, and just imagine this is the uterus muscle. Here what are present? Receptors are present. Receptors for what? Receptors for the oxytocin. Then oxytocin will come and associated with that specific receptor. Whenever oxytocin comes and associated with that specific receptor, what is happening, friends? There is a elongation is happening, contraction. So there is a contraction is happening, which gives unbearable pain. You can't imagine the pain of that particular labor time. And if you want me to explain that pain in terms of a decibels, I'm just giving an example. You know, we human beings, we can't tolerate the tooth pain. Tooth pain is around 90 decibels. But if you look into the labor pain, the contraction of the uterus muscles, I can say that, friends, it is around 1000 to 1200 decibel. That much pain it will give. Or in more general, I can say that in our body, if 50 bones got fractured at a time, remember my words, if 50 bones got fractured at a time, how much pain it will come? The similar pain will appear during the contraction of the uterus muscle. That contraction is exclusively mediated by the oxytocin. No point of getting confused over there. Whereas after the childbirth, remember what I am saying here, oxytocin stimulates milk ejection. So many students are getting confused between the ejection and production and the hormones involved over there. In the exam, if they ask you a question, what is the major hormone that is involved in the milk production? Undoubtedly, you have to choose the answer as prolactin. Prolactin is the hormone which is involved in the production of the milk in the mammary gland. Right. Whereas the hormone, see, milk got produced, friends. How the milk will get ejected out? How the milk comes out through the mammary glands? You know, right? Milk is getting ejected from the mammary gland in response to the suckling action of a nursing infant. And this is one of the way. Newborn baby, when he or she starts sucking the mammary glands, then what happen? Immediately that suckling action create a stimulus. That stimulus will activate the oxytocin. Then oxytocin start ejecting all the milk out from the mammary gland. That's why we can say that oxytocin is involved during the childbirth also. Oxytocin also plays a key role after the childbirth also. No point of getting confused over there. Very important hormone to be remembered for the exam. Next one, another important hormone, very important hormone, ADH. And friends, we ADH also called as vasopressin. Okay. Now let me ask you one simple statement to all of you. Think and answer my question. Do you think hormones can be released in the body every time? My question to all of you, does hormones released in the body every time? Remember everyone, no hormone, whether it is a plant hormone or animal hormone, they never be released all the time. Whenever there is a requirement, very good. Whenever there is a requirement, then only the hormone synthesis will occur. Otherwise, the hormone synthesis never ever takes place. Similarly, when this particular antidiuretic hormone or the vasopressin is getting released, that's the unique statement to be understood. Now, this vasopressin or the ADH, it is going to release, friends, only under high blood osmotic pressure. This is the important statement that every student has to understand. Whenever the blood pressure is extremely higher, during that specific time only, this ADH is going to release. And tell me, when the blood osmotic pressure become higher, that is important here. Blood osmotic pressure become higher because of the dehydration, diarrhea, excessive sweating. Friends, you only tell me, in these three conditions, what is actually happening? In the dehydration, loss of fluids, diarrhea, loss of fluids, excessive sweating, loss of fluids. So all the fluids in the body become lost. Now everyone understand, focus on the picture. Whenever the condition is high blood osmotic pressure, everyone remember, immediately whatever the receptors that are present in the hypothalamus, what friends, whatever the receptor that are present in the hypothalamus, which we call it as the osmoreceptors, which we call it as what? Osmoreceptor. They are getting activated. So follow me, I'll explain very elaboratively. What is our goal now? Actually, the blood osmotic pressure is high. Now what should I do? I have to decrease it and I have to bring it to the normal level. How is it really possible? Look into this, look into this. Whenever the blood osmotic pressure is higher, all the students listen, on the hypothalamus. On the hypothalamus, there are some important receptors are present, which we can call the osmoreceptor. I want you to remember this. There are some receptors which are present in the hypothalamus, which we generally call as osmoreceptor. What these osmoreceptors are doing, everyone listen to me very correctly. These osmoreceptors stimulate the neurosecretory cells. What are said to be the neurosecretory cells? Neurosecretory cells nothing but specialized neurons. Who is activating these specialized neurons? Osmoreceptor. When the neurosecretory cells get activated, they will release antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin. Now that antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin, how it is going to reach the posterior pituitary gland? That is the question. They are going to reach the posterior pituitary gland via hypophyseal portal system. via hypophyseal portal system they are going to release. Now you only try to understand, use your brain. The moment it reaches to the hypophyseal portal system from the posterior pituitary, listen, look into this. The antidiuretic hormone acting on kidney, antidiuretic hormone acting on the skin, antidiuretic hormone acting on the blood vessel also. It is acting at a multiple areas. So you tell me, it act on the kidney, you know, then what it is going to do? It is going to decrease the urine output. So friends, when the urine output got decreased, most of the essential ions never go out of the body. So that is called decreasing the urine output. Whenever it is acting on the skin, you know what it will do? It will decrease the mechanism of perspiration. What is called perspiration? Sweating. When the sweating got decreased, friends, essential ions never go out of the body. Not only that, friends, it is also involved in constriction of the arterioles. It's also involved in constriction of the arteriole. Suppose actually, friends, arteriole is like this, then more blood can move actually. But right now we have to decrease the blood pressure. So what we are doing? We are constricting it like this. When we constrict, more blood cannot move. As a result, when we decrease the urine output, decrease the sweating, constrict the arterioles, whatever the blood osmotic pressure that become higher, it comes to the normal level. No point of getting confused over there, and it is very easy to understand also. Right, that is clear. So what my conclusion here, I'll quickly summarize to all of you. Whenever blood osmotic pressure is higher, immediately what is going to happen? Osmoreceptors are getting activated. Those osmoreceptors stimulate the neurosecretory cells. Those neurosecretory cells act on what? Those neurosecretory cells stimulate and release the vasopressin. Vasopressin reaches the posterior pituitary gland. From the posterior pituitary gland, it acts on the kidney, skin and arteriole. Finally, they decrease high blood osmotic pressure. This is the function of two hormones of the posterior pituitary gland. That is the ADH hormone, also called as vasopressin. Another one is called as the oxytocin. There are only two. That two hormones also not synthesized by the posterior pituitary. They are actually, listen everyone, they are actually synthesized by the hypothalamus, but they are getting stored and they are getting released via this posterior pituitary. No point of confusion at all. Now, very important is we have to focus on the anterior pituitary, where most of the questions appear in the exam. So listen, no point of getting confused over there. If you recall my words, just now we discussed, right? Posterior pituitary, also called as neurohypophysis, whereas anterior pituitary, it is also called as adenohypophysis. Anterior pituitary called as what, friends? Adenohypophysis. And posterior pituitary just occupy 15 to 25% of the entire pituitary gland. Majority portion of the pituitary gland is occupied exclusively by anterior pituitary only. No point of getting confused over there. Now friends, not only single hormone, anterior pituitary is going to release multiple hormones. You can see that. Look into this. Anterior pituitary gland stimulate the ovaries and testes, and they are involved in releasing the FSH and LH. We will discuss it. Follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone. It is involved in the development of growth hormone, required for the development of prolactin, adrenocorticotropic hormone, T3, T4. These are all actually what? Stimulated by the anterior pituitary gland only. Now let's try to understand one by one hormone elaboratively. Okay, listen. Depending on what kind of a cells, that are involved in releasing the hormones, we categorize them into multiple types. Hormones that act on, I want you to understand me friends, hormones that act on other endocrine glands, those we generally call it as tropic hormones. No point of confusing. One hormone released from one endocrine gland, but it is showing its action on the other endocrine gland. Those kind of hormones called as tropins or a tropic hormone. Now every student listen. As I told you, posterior pituitary release only two hormones, that's all. Anterior pituitary is going to release multiple hormones. Depending on what kind of a cells that it contains, different hormones are going to release. Listen all the students, somatotrophs. What the somatotrophs are going to do? They are going to release a somatotropin or a human growth hormone. We are going to discuss every hormone elaboratively. Thyrotrophs. What is the meaning of thyrotroph? It is the one which is involved in synthesis of a thyroid stimulating hormone. Thyroid stimulating hormone further give rise to what? It give rise to T3, it give rise to the T4 also. No point of getting confused. Gonadotropes, especially follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone. Lactotropes are the type of the cell which give rise to the prolactin, which is involved in the production of milk. We'll discuss that. Corticotropes are the group of cells that produce corticotropin. No point of getting confused over there, and it is easy to understand. Now friends, we will discuss one by one hormone of the anterior pituitary. Okay, please be patient and focus. We'll discuss everything. And I am telling to all of you, the CSIR student, GATE students, there's no doubt you have to work extremely harder. When it comes to the set exam, people, I am telling you, you follow me very correctly. Out of 100 questions coming in your exam, 90 questions you can answer just from the teaching itself. But you have to be very dedicated till the end. Okay, if you show your interest and anxiety for 10 days, even in dream also we can't crack the exam. Always remember, when it comes to the CSR and GATE, we have to work extremely hard every single day, because our questions are mostly experimental based questions or analytical questions. Alright, now first let's discuss two type of a hormones which are called as gonadotropin hormones. What are the two type of a gonadotropin hormone? Follicle stimulating hormone. Second one is called luteinizing hormone. Both are called as gonadotropins. Tell me why we are calling them as the gonadotropins? Because they are acting on the gonads. That's why we call them as the gonadotropin hormones. Now, what are gonads? In the females we can call ovaries, and in the male we can call testes. So FSH acting on the ovary also, FSH acting on the testis also. Is it really necessary to remember? It is super important, where we can expect the matching question. Now, what the FSH do in the ovaries? Suppose friends, it is a ovary. So this FSH hormone helpful in the development of several ovarian follicles. What friends? This FSH involved in the development of several ovarian follicles on the ovary. Now question is very clear. What these ovarian follicles are actually doing? These ovarian follicles are actually involved in releasing the estrogen. There is no point of getting confused. They are involved in what friends? Releasing the estrogen. Right. So always remember, follicular cells of the ovary only give rise to the estrogen, which is the female sex hormone, and which is stimulated by FSH. So undoubtedly friends, FSH acting on the females. Similarly, FSH also act on the male. FSH stimulate sperm production. Very important friends. In the males, FSH stimulate the Sertoli cells which are involved in the sperm production and their nourishment. Now here comes a very interesting point. How can we regulate the FSH hormone? FSH hormone, we will discuss the regulation in the upcoming slide. It is regulated by a hormone called as GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. Actually, the gonadotropic releasing hormone only release the FSH. Actually, now gonadotropin releasing hormone is regulated by what? Hypothalamus. So, what is my conclusion? If I want to control or if I want to regulate the FSH, I can regulate it with the help of GnRH also. I can regulate it with the help of the hypothalamus also. No point of getting confused over there. Okay, next one we called luteinizing hormone. However, we called FSH hormone as a gonadotropin hormone. Why we are using the word gonadotropin? Because they are acting on the gonads. Gonads means ovaries and testes. Similarly, LH is also gonadotropin only. So, it is also acting on the ovaries and testes. This is important. What LH will do in the female? Very simple. LH hormone stimulate the process of ovulation. Friends, what is actually ovulation? Release of the egg from the mature ovary. Now tell me friends, suppose this is the mature ovary, egg got released out. Now tell me what is going to happen to this? What happens to the remaining entire mature ovary? Very important friends, remaining this entire mature ovary give rise to the corpus luteum. Why it is going to give rise to? It is going to give rise to the corpus luteum. Very important statement all the students has to remember. That particular corpus luteum only giving rise to progesterone. Very important female sex hormone which is involved in the development of secondary sexual characteristics. Secondary sexual, such as in the female breast development, smooth voice, all these are all what? Secondary sexual characteristics which is stimulated by the progesterone. No point of getting confused. When it comes to the same luteinizing hormone, what it is going to do in the testis? In the testis, LH is going to stimulate the secretion of testosterone. However, I am saying progesterone is the female sex hormone. Similarly, in the male, we can say that testosterone is the major male sex hormone which is involved in the development of secondary sexual characteristics. What kind of characteristics in the male? Development of a beard, correct na? Rough voice, all these are all what? Secondary sexual characteristics which is stimulated by the testosterone. That testosterone is synthesized by the testis. No point of getting confused over there. But what is the point? Again, FSH and LH which are acting on the male and female, both are controlled by the GnRH, and GnRH is controlled by the hypothalamus. Alright. Is it clear for everyone? Is there any doubts so far? I believe I am not going too fast. Okay. And the point is that you people are not 10th standard or 11th standard people. Okay. You are all completed MSc or you are pursuing MSc. Okay. You have to study extreme depth of the concepts. Okay. If you just read the definitions and if you think that you will qualify the exam, that never happens. Okay. The more depth we read, more easily we can answer the questions. Clear everyone? And that's all for now. The people who did not attended today's morning class, requesting everyone compulsory watch the record of today's morning and join tomorrow's morning. Okay. So from tomorrow's morning, the timings are very fixed, friends. 6 to 7:15 a.m. and 6 to 7:15 p.m. Okay. But from the July 1st, we will increase it. Because if I teach 2.5 hours, I'll cover the content of at least 3 to 3.5 hours. You have to revise it very clearly. And how to read the concepts? First, keep my PPT with you, and whatever the study material that I will send to you, keep those study material. Whatever the information present in the PPT, read the same information in the study material, and whatever the questions that I will provide, if you solve it, 100% we can crack the exam. But the highest important or highest priority is gaining the knowledge. I can't say knowledge, gaining the right knowledge on the subject. If you have a wonderful knowledge, you can easily answer the question. But that right knowledge never comes in a single attempt. You have to read multiple times. Revision is the true mother of learning. The more times you people revise, more experts you become. All right. Okay, that's all for now. From see, since now it is the first day, I'm going little bit slow. From tomorrow, we have to go little bit faster because our syllabus is like a ocean. We have to cover vast amount of the syllabus, so we have to go little speed and we have to solve number of MCQs as well. All right, that's all for now. I hope the discussion is useful to all of you. Please join sharp 6 a.m. tomorrow. Okay. No, there's nothing called a link Amini. I told you, right? I'll add you in the group. You will get an idea. You will get a notification from the app directly. If you just click on the notification, you can enter the class directly. All right. Okay. Thank you, all of you. Thank you.